I recently encountered a Harvard Business Review article in my LinkedIn feed that said, "Stop asking for feedback." Feedback rarely helps you and sometimes even negatively impacts your performance. I was skeptical, but also curious. After all, it's Harvard, so click. And somewhere a marketer got paid. Well, the article was a little bit disappointing, chock full of anecdote. The author had once been asked to do a presentation in an interview. It went poorly. They got some unhelpful feedback and decided never again, swearing off feedback for life. Okay, so maybe not the most rigorous of publications. But there was one reference to some research with some actual data in it. In this work, researchers had analyzed 24,000 feedback interactions and discovered that fully a third of them had a negative impact on the receiver of the feedback. That's a lot. And it explains the tagline to this article. But here's the thing. On average, across all 24,000 of those interactions, the feedback had a net positive impact. There is good, there is value in feedback, but we have to do some work to extract it. See, feedback is like a funhouse of mirrors. The images we get back reflect not just us, how tall we are, what we're wearing, the cut of our chin, and whether our curly hair happens to be a little bit on the frizzy side that day, but also something about the shape of the mirrors. Some of those mirrors are convex, some of them are concave, some are so wavy they make you a little nauseous when you look in them. Some have more subtle effects, like eliminating a color or shifting the spectrum. The one thing we know about these mirrors is that not a single one of them is flat. And some of them are so distorted that if we just believe what comes back to us, it can actually do us some real harm. So Harvard tells us to stay out of the funhouse. Do not go in there. But I think that's leaving a lot of value on the table. Instead, take these tips with you the next time you go into the Feedback Funhouse. Tip number 1, get more feedback, not less. If you look in just 2 mirrors and you see in one of them a blue sweater and in the other a red sweater, well, it's kind of hard to know what to do with that. But if you look in 100 mirrors and 95 of them are showing you in a red sweater, there's a pretty good chance you're wearing a red sweater. So the distortions in these mirrors are random, sporadic, and we can take advantage of that by looking in lots of mirrors and pulling out the patterns, the themes, as a way to ascertain the truth. Take that one step further and go in lots of different fun houses at lots of different fairs to make sure that you're eliminating systematic distortion in your mirrors. Get feedback from work, but also from friends and hobbies and volunteer activities. This can help you identify the patterns and the truth by looking at lots of mirrors. Tip number 2, ignore much of the feedback. That's right, I just told you to get a lot of feedback, and now I'm telling you to ignore most of it. The thing is, we know that a good portion of the feedback is unhelpful at best, and sometimes even harmful. So it's our job as receivers of feedback to sort through it, to only act on the things that make sense to us, that resonate, that pass our own sniff test. I was trained both to give feedback and to receive it. But nobody has ever talked to me about what to do with the feedback when I have it. And the implication is that there's no work. You just obey the feedback that comes your way. But we know that's wrong and harmful. Your work as a receiver of feedback starts when you've gotten it. You have to decide which pieces to use and which to discard. And if you believe the results of that study, you should be discarding a pretty good portion of it. Now, that doesn't mean throw it away entirely. I used to have an entire filing cabinet full of old feedback in my brain. Now it's more like a warehouse. And the truth is, much of it is garbage. But every once in a while, somebody will say something, or I'll have an experience that clicks. And I can go back in the warehouse and pull out the pieces of feedback that newly make sense to me. It's kind of another way of doing tip number 1, getting lots of feedback. Tip number 3, learn something about the shape of your mirrors. If we understand how our mirrors are shaped, we can compensate for the distortion that they have. We can sort of back solve for the signal that went into that mirror that resulted in the feedback that came at us. Well, if that sounds like a lot of work, it is. It's not something that you want to do on every mirror in your funhouse. But for mirrors that you're going to look into a lot, a longtime boss, a spouse, friends, family, for those, it probably is worth the work to really characterize what that shape of that mirror is, so you can get the most out of those regular, important feedback interactions. Well, Harvard tells us to stay out of the funhouse, but I think they've got it wrong. Go in the funhouse. And remember to look in lots of mirrors, discard much of the feedback, and know something about the shapes of those mirrors. There's a lot of value in feedback. Keep looking for it.